Hi guys, I'm Anita and I'm back with another video, and today is going to be the last book that is covering 2019 reading. It will be my favorite books of the year 2019. I'm going to talk about all of the books that I gave 5 stars to in 2019 because I have 26 5-star reads, so obviously my 10 favorite books is going to be part of those 26 books. So I'm starting out by talking about all of them, so I give them all a mention because I love them all. But I've narrowed it down to 10, even though it was really difficult, and it was even more difficult actually ranking them. But let's get started. As I said, I've read 26 books in 2019 that I gave 5 stars to, and the first one I gave 5 stars to was Den Forkerte Død, or The Wrongful Death by Kenneth Andersen. This is book 3 in the Great Devil War series. I also gave 5 stars to In Order to Live by Yeonmy Park. This is a non-fiction that is about a girl's escape from North Korea. And the next one I gave 5 stars to was And Every Morning the Way Home Gets Longer and Longer by Fredrik Backman. This is a short novella. The fourth 5-star read was Fullmetal Alchemist Volume 8 by Hiromu Arakawa. Then I read The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. The next one I read was Men at Arms by Pratchett. This is the second City Watch book, and it is like maybe the 15th in the Discworld. I think it's the 15th or 14th in the Discworld order, but I'm a little unsure right now. The next one I gave 5 stars to was Fool's Assassin by Robin Hobb, the first book in the Fits in the Fool trilogy. Then I gave 5 stars to It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover, which is a standalone, new adult, contemporary, I'm not gonna call it romance because it covers abuse. The next 5 stars was Night Broken by Patricia Briggs. This is book 8 in the Mercy Thompson series, and I definitely did mark off a couple of things in this one. The next book is The Calculating Stars by Robinette Kowall, the first book in the Lady Astronaut series. The next one I read was Fullmetal Alchemist Volume 9, another book by Hiromu Arakawa. And the next book that I gave 5 stars to was The Hobbit or There and Back Again by J.R.R. Tolkien. This is a classic fantasy. Another 5 stars was given to Foundryside by Robert Jackson Bennett, the first book in the Founders series. Then I read Fullmetal Alchemist Volume 10 and Fullmetal Alchemist Volume 11 by Hiromu Arakawa. The next one I read was Fool's Quest by Robin Hobb, the second book in the Fits in the Fool trilogy. The 17th 5-star read was And the Rest is History by Jodi Taylor, the 8th book in the Chronicles of St. Mary series. The next one I read was Maskerade by Pratchett. This is a witch's book. I think it's the 5th, I think, in the Witcher series, and it is the 18th in the Discworld series. Then I read Ondskabens Engel, or The Angel of Evil by Kenneth Andersen. This is book 4 in the Great Devil War series. Then 20th 5-star read was Fullmetal Alchemist Volume 12 by Hiromu Arakawa. The next 5-star was Silence Fallen by Patricia Briggs, book 10 in the Mercy Thompson series. Then I read Pet Sematary by Stephen King, the 22nd 5-star read. The next 5-star was The Christmasaurus and the Winter Witch by Tom Fletcher. This is the second sequel to The Christmasaurus. Then I read Hogfather by Pratchett. This is the 20th book in the Discworld, and it is the 4th book following death, and I really enjoyed it. The 25th book that I gave 5 stars to was Fullmetal Alchemist Volume 13, which is also by Hiromu Arakawa. And the last and final 5-star read of the year was Assassin's Fate by Robin Hobb, the third and final book in the Fits in the Fool trilogy. So now narrowing it down to 10 was difficult, and placing them in an order was also difficult. But I am going from the 10th to the 1st now and let you know my thoughts about them. On the 10th spot, I have And Every Morning the Way Home Gets Longer and Longer by Fredrik Backman. This is a short novella. It is only like, I think, around 90 pages long, and I really enjoyed my time reading it. It is a short story about a boy and his grandfather, and the grandfather is having Alzheimer's, and the boy is trying to understand what is happening with his father, and obviously that can be difficult to come to terms with. And it was very beautiful and heartwarming, but also heartbreaking at the same time. Coming in as number 9 on this list is going to be It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. This was the biggest surprise for me because I expected really not enjoying this one at all. And I think that's why it sort of ended up on such a high spot on my list, actually. I will say that it covers abuse, so you have to be aware of that. And it's definitely not easy to read. And it's not one, you should not go into it thinking that it's a romance, because it's not. But it does cover abuse, and as you're reading it, you're really frustrated and angry with what is going on. But at the same time, I was eager to find out how it was all going to end up and how she was going to get out of the situation she was in. But I'm happy with how it ended up, where it ended up, and yeah, I thought it felt really realistic, and because of that, I ended up giving it 5 stars. Coming in as number 8 is my favorite Mercy Thompson book of the year, and that is Silence Fallen by Patricia Briggs. This is the 10th book in the series, and this one just really was interesting because it took place in a completely different setting than the usual, because Mercy was in the beginning of this abducted by a European vampire king sort of thing, because he had heard that she was the most powerful person in the United States, which is probably true, but not the way that he's looking at it, for sure. But I loved it and really thought it was a great addition to the series. Coming in as number 7 is Pet Sematary by Stephen King. I was really pleasantly surprised about how much I enjoyed this book. This is not for everyone. It is definitely weird in places, but it is about this family that moves to Maine, a small city in Maine, and they move in across the street from the pet cemetery. And the pet cemetery is a place where people bury their pets when they get run over by cars, because they're living right out to a main road, and a lot of pets had died walking over that street, because but then things start happening, and some of the pets from the pet cemetery start showing up into their house, and things get really strange really quickly. I enjoyed this one so much. I thought the way that Stephen King wrote the characters and how they were struggling with what was happening, because very early on in the book, like, the father and mother in this family loses their youngest son, and the way they're trying to come into terms with everything and how they're thinking about it is just really interesting, and I really enjoyed reading about that. Enjoyed is difficult to say, but I just thought it was written so well and so realistically in terms of how they handled themselves in those situations. Coming in as number 6 is Maskerade by Terry Pratchett. This, as I said, is a witches book, and it's the only witches books that I've ever given 5 stars to. This was just amazing. It's sort of a play on, I think, Phantom of the Opera. I'm not very much into musicals, so I don't know much about that musical or anything, but that is the gist of what I got from this. And it was so much fun. I just love the witches. I just love Granny Weatherwax, Nanny Og, Maskerade, all of them. They're incredible characters in this series, and there's a specific scene where Granny Weatherwax is playing poker with death that is just really memorable, and I really love that scene. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. Coming in as number 5 on my list is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn, Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is definitely one of the best books that I read this year. I didn't know where to put it on the series or on this list, because Evelyn Hugo herself as a character was so incredible, but the whole way that it was told was something that I actually really enjoyed, which was surprising because I usually don't enjoy that type of storytelling. So it was just that the audio was done really well. I don't know why everyone always says that if an audio is great, it's because it's full cast. I think this was done phenomenally. I think that really made the experience for me a lot better. I'm not going to talk much about what this one is about because I feel like everyone and their mother has read it, and I was quite late on the hype train. Coming in as number 4 on my list is Foundryside by Robert Jackson Bennett, the first book in the Founders series. This was a really good start to a new series, and I really enjoyed the magic system. There was a couple of really interesting characters, and especially Clef was amazing. And I'm really looking forward to seeing where this will go in the future. And Robert Jackson Bennett is definitely become one I'll be looking out more for more from his in the future. I am looking forward to reading his other trilogy as well, because I think that the way he does world building is something that I really enjoy. Definitely enjoyed it a lot. Coming in as number 3 and my favorite Discworld book of the year is Hogfather by Terry Pratchett. I didn't know where to put this on my list because I really just enjoyed it. Death is my favorite character of the Discworld, and it's just, again, explains why. And in this one, Susan, who is Death's granddaughter, has her part of this, and it just gave her a lot of depth as well, and gave her own voice a lot more than she has previously. I think that in Soul Music, this started with her perspective, and I really enjoyed Soul Music for that part of it. But this one was just overall done much better than Soul Music for me, and I end up giving it 5 stars because it's just become one of my favorite Discworld books ever. So that deserves to come on to this. Coming in as number 2 is The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien, or There and Back Again, or whatever you call it. I didn't know what to expect reading this. I didn't think that it was gonna get to me as much as it did. But I don't think when I did the mid-year wrap-up, I don't think that it was this high on the favorites list, but if I remember correctly, it was a little lower. But for me, the more I think about it, the further I get away from it, the more happy I am with the book, which is weird. Usually it will be the other way around, that I will start liking the book a little less the further away I get from it. So I'm really looking forward to rereading that in some way or form in the future, because I really enjoyed it. It is obviously a very famous fantasy story about Bilbo Baggins as he decides to go on an adventure. Or well, he's more or less thrown into it, not really on his own, with his own will. But he goes on an adventure to help out the dwarves get back their mountain and all of that. And it starts, like, it's just really well told, and Bilbo finds the ring that is the big part of the next trilogy. Like, it's just amazing, and I understand why it's on so many people's favorites books of ever. Maybe if I reread this enough, it will also become one of my absolute favorites of, like, I understand that now, and I'm really looking forward to reading The Lord of the Rings, even though I know that that is written differently because it's for a different audience. The Hobbit was considered a children's book, but it's definitely very much readable for an adult as well, and get some enjoyment out of it, but it's not as complex as the Lord of the Rings trilogy is. So the last and final book on my list is probably not a surprise, because I've been talking a lot about this book over the past year since I read it, and it was also like the best book that I have talked about in my 2019 survey, so you know it if you watched that. But my favorite book of the year is The Calculating Stars by Mary Robinette Kowall. I didn't think that I would have a science fiction book as my favorite of the year, but this was really great. It's an alternative history set in the 1950s, 1952, when a big meteorite strikes the Atlantic Ocean pretty close to the eastern coast of America, and it basically obliterates the East Coast and a lot of Canada's East Coast as well. And all the way to like the Washington DC is gone because of the chain reactions that happens after that meteorite strikes. It will change the climate a lot, so that the Earth will actually in the future become inhabitable. Because of that, they start on a space program trying to get people colonizing the moon. That is the big aim of this series. And but in the beginning, the women are not considered to be part of the space program. But when these women starts fighting against that, claiming that there has to be women on this program, because how can you start colonizing the moon without women? I mean, women has to go there sometime, and if it has to look as though it's safe for everyone to go there, the women has to be part of the space program. At least that's what they are telling everyone. And this first book is actually all about them fighting to get a chance to be part of the first space travel to the moon. Elma, our main character that we're following this from, is struggling with some mental illnesses as well. Like it covers a lot of things, and some people think that it covers too many things, that it can't really go too much in depth with all of it. But I just felt it was so impactful to me in overall. And even though I know that it could have been maybe benefited from having different perspectives, I'm actually happy that it was shown from Elma's perspective, because I felt like it was a realistic way that she looked at everything. The first two books here has been from Elma's perspectives, and the next two books in the Lady Astronaut series that comes out this year, I don't know if both of them comes out this year, but if at least one of them is from a different perspective. There's perspectives that will be covered in those are some of the people of color that was part of this but didn't have their own voice. So that's going to be really, really interesting. I love this one. I gave it 5 stars, and it's my favorite book of the year. It's not for everyone, but I think that it's also a book that's easy to get into if you don't read a lot of science fiction usually, because I think that's also something that I was very worried about, because I don't know a lot of things about space travel. So this was told in a way that I understood it, and yeah, just really enjoyed it, and my favorite of the year. So yeah, let me know in comments down below what your favorite book of the year was. Have you read any of the books that I've been reading, that I've been talking about today, and do you agree with my thoughts on them? Definitely let me know your favorite book of the year, because I always like to add more to my TBR, to my radar. There's always a lot of books that I am missing out on, and I know my books are not the same as everyone else's, which I think is a good thing, because then all of the lists are not the same. So I hope that still a lot of people would like to watch this and are not too sick of watching these end of the year videos, because they think that every person has read the same things. I am always very late to the game, but yeah. That's all I have for you today. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next video very soon.